Perfect.
Jeremy, and I'll text him right now as well.
There are a couple spots open. I don't want you to sit back there if you're in the back. Oh, okay, just wondered, like, hey, there's some spots, you know. So, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
There we go. Let's get the year off. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So you should have received the agenda via email electronically. So I know Gray
It is attached to the Google invite.
shared that, and Tom. Why is this thing?
Thank you, Gray.
It's right there. It's gonna be connected soon. So let's go ahead and so it's good seeing everyone. So let's go ahead and just do some quick introductions. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. As part of that, Ray, are you ready for, or anyone? I'm not Ray. Make sure we capture attendance and so forth as part of the roll call.
Yep.
Thank you. So how about we start over here? You want to start here? Introduce yourselves, who you are, what brings you here. People might know each other, but then we do have some guests. We have guests, and we have a couple new people.
Hello, everyone. My name is Makoyashi. I'm the Ojibwe Language Culture Coordinator. I am the follow cat of Sheila White's. Just kidding. No. Just kidding. I usually come here for meetings, so that's why I'm here. Thank you. Very much.
I'm the new American Indian Education Coordinator for the district. I just started on Monday, so it's been a week and a few days, and it's been awesome so far. Trying to connect with each and every one of you. So if you see me walking, just say, hey, bonjour, Sheila. But I will set up a time to meet you. If it's not in a big group, it'll be individually.
Excuse me, good evening. I'm Simone Zunich, and I'm the Executive Director of Business Services. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I think, Sheila, we haven't met yet, but we have a meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
Get to meet you.
1 o'clock, I believe.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Don Melton. I'm the JOM Chair and Title VI Vice Chair, and happy parent of 2 kids in the district, and very happy to be here and enjoy all your company and watch the AIPAC meeting.
I'm Amber Green Sky. I am one of the co-chairs for AIPAC, and I'm also on the Title VI and JOM committees.
I'm Dustin. I'm part of the JLM committee. I work at Lincoln Middle School. First timer.
I am T. I'm the chair for Title VI this year. I have 2 babies in the district, so I'm a parent.
Tim Pohl, AIPAC, Title VI JOM. You're up.
I'm Cadell, and I'm a student rep.
Thank you.
And Phyllis Cole, Cadell's mom. Our youngest, last one of our kids to be going through the school district. We have 4 others that graduated through Duluth Public Schools. And so now we have Cadell. And we also have 2 grandchildren who are in Masabi Kong, students at Masabi Kong. So yeah, we're still here. And then, let's see. And because she's bashful, Cadell, our student rep, today placed 7th at the Corky Invite up in Ely. It's actually the Two Harbors Invite, but they probably don't have snow up there. so we went up to Ely today. And so she skis girls varsity. She's an 8th grade, but she's a varsity skier. So Denfeld High School had,
Ooh,
had,
congrats.
had a top 10. Yeah, skiers today. So, yeah.
Anthony Bonds, Assistant Superintendent for the district, and was serving as the interim coordinator for the American Indian Education Department. And now I'm very pleased to welcome our new coordinator, which she'll spend a little bit more time in a minute introducing herself to all of you. So let's go to the back and then introduce yourself and who you are.
My name is Hillary. I'm here to serve and have a 6-year-old Hi, I am Stephanie Williams. I was just assigned this year as the school board rep to come to these meetings, and I'm really excited about it. I'm just gonna say a little bit more. I'm sorry. My introduction to the district. I used to work for Brewer Public Schools for about 5 years, and I worked in the Indian Education Department in Graysboro, and I did that for 5 years, and I loved it. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you, Sheila, and talking to you, and all of you as part of AIPAC. Quick question, if that's okay. Is there a staff rep on AIPAC? Are they here? Oh, okay. I'm online. Oh, you are. Sorry. Brenda Goldstein. Brenda, it's still you. Hi. Okay. Thank you. I was just curious.
Stephanie, can you go ahead and also share who our alternate is for?
I truly don't remember.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It might be.
It is chair.
Oh, duh. I'm sorry. It is, yeah, our board chair.
Board chair Derek Eaters.
It's Kelly Derek Eaters.
Yep, she is
Yeah.
the alternate, so we
Yes.
will have a official board rep. That was one of the things that was requested as part of the concurrence, not concurrence. So we do have official board reps now who will be here. So awesome.
Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm Emma Boje, and I'm also a student rep. We're working with, sorry.
Do you at least want to just name who's online? Great.
Yes, we have Lydia Schenkel and Brenda Goldman, of course, and Amber Lightfeather, the other co-chair for AIPAC. That was Lydia.
I'm hoping they get there. I'm on the road back from the Capitol. I spent the day speaking with legislators, trying to get more money to help keep our kids, our IPO kids in their homes. So I'm on my way back. Hopefully I'll get to Denfeld in time before the meeting's over, but I thought I would join virtually, just while I'm in transit.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, thank you. And so, Sheila, as everyone knows, she is now our coordinator, started this week, and so we're just really pleased to have her on board. She's been hitting the ground running really, really, really fast. Trying to get a quick understanding of all of the inner workings of the department and all of the plans that exist, introducing herself to staff, making it out to some sites, and we still has a few more sites to visit, meaning schools. Ray has been doing an amazing job of really helping to onboard Sheila with all the information. I know she's started to do some connections with agenda setting, and I know has other emails out for others to help start the ongoing agenda setting, whether it's for AIPAC or JOM or Title VI. So just really trying to, get her acclimated to the district and having a good welcome. And so we're just really pleased to have Sheila with us. You want to add anything else, Sheila?
I just want to just to thank you for giving me this, amazing welcome to your district and your lands here. I've been enjoying myself every day, and I really am really happy to be working with everyone. And everybody says that I talk to, which is our big goal, is we're working for our students, our kids, our grandkids, the family, and the community, and to keep that focus. And I really appreciate that, what I hear from you.
Thank you. And Gray, while we're doing this, if you want to start handing out documents that you have at some point, that'd be good, whatever document you have. Also in the agenda, just know that if everyone received this. I use a lot of electronics. I'm not big on a lot of print, because I end up just tossing it. It's just wasteful paper. So in the agenda that everyone receives, there's always these hyperlinks. So if you're not familiar with the Google Doc, just know that all you gotta do is click on it, and then you'll get the document that's attached there. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the December approval. I guess I'm gonna call this meeting to order. So we are officially in session without any going through a big process. So let's go through the approval of December 10th, 11th meeting. So again, everyone received these documents, copies.
Have them handed out if you would
Yeah.
print it out for.
Yep, just start handing out everything that is linked here. I know Gray has copied the vast majority of these things, so you will have access to them. So we do need an approval of the last meeting for. Because I don't believe they were approved in the last meetings. So I'll give you a minute to take a look at those, and then I'll look for an acceptance of the minutes.
I'm not the fast distributor.
Was there water left over from the week?
Take one and pass it down.
There's
please.
subs there too, Anthony. Small subs.
On the folder.
Yeah.
Good. Text me too.
Little chubby.
Over. Not the, that's her.
Is this yours? I'm gonna say it.
No, you're good. We have the little ones. I also
The little
have those
chubbies
ones
there.
in the cart that are not drunk out.
Okay, so I've got to take your personal water.
Yeah, I was like, what are we doing?
Trying to say I took her.
Yeah, you take one.
Any questions, so we can continue, any questions related to, I'm looking for an acceptance of the December 11th meeting.
Take one, pass it down. When what I'm
Approve we
passing
accept
out
them.
right now,
Huh.
if
Make
you
a
wanna
motion to
approve your
accept.
minutes with him first.
There's a motion on the table for accepting of the minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. There has been a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the minutes have been accepted, so we're gonna go on to our next.
Don't we need to vote on that? You just need a motion and a second? I'm still reading them.
I mean, yes, we could. I mean, we can stay as formal or informal, makes no difference. So I'll move for an acceptance of the minutes for December 11th. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? With voice of aye?
Aye.
Good, sounds good. Nay? Ayes have it.
Okay, I'm still reading them.
like an additional discussion, or would you prefer us co-chair to do another call?
Oh, just making sure everyone has an opportunity to read the minutes. No, I don't have any questions, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Sounds good. So our December 11th meeting minutes have been approved. Confirmation of the American Indian Education Plan. So as I shared before the winter break, the plan was drafted after a lot of feedback from a lot of conversations. I think someone mentioned, multiple hours of lots of dialogue related to the plan and the formulation of it. So the draft has been provided. It was provided again before we went on our holiday break, and there was a request to make sure that the entire AIPAC had an opportunity to see the plan one more time. Because of the timeline for submission to the state, I did move forward with submitting the plan as is without the signatures from AIPAC, because again, we want to make sure we met that extended deadline from the state. So today I'm looking to have us move forward with any questions that's maybe still out there related to the plan, so that we can have confirmation of it and receive the proper signatures. So the state received not only the plan that you have access to, they received the budget. They was also a part of the requirement, as well as a roster of the AIPAC. So the budget was submitted, the roster was submitted, as well as the plan was submitted to the state. And I indicated to them that we would have a final confirmation conversation with AIPAC and move forward in January. T.
So you submitted this without the signatures already, so why do you need the signatures?
Signatures are required, and that was a request of co-chair to just go ahead and submit without signatures
Oh, okay, so
to
is
meet the
that,
deadline.
okay, to just send it in that way though, or?
Yeah, I mean, MDE knows it. I made sure they were aware that it was being submitted, because there was a request for an extension. So I made the request for an extension to finish the plan. I got the request approved for the extension. I wanted to hit that deadline, but then there was at the last AIPAC meeting, there was a discussion to not move forward with, to go ahead and move forward or submit it without the signatures, so that they will be, the entire committee can see the plan one more time. So that's what this is.
Okay, so you just need signatures from 2 people though?
From the co-chairs, correct.
Okay, if they don't wanna sign it, I think it's okay to just send in as is, right?
I guess the question on the table would be, after a lot of dialogue and input from AIPAC, why wouldn't there be signatures, is what I would be wondering. And again, I'm facilitating the conversation. This is, advisory, and, I guess I just would be questioning, like, why wouldn't we receive the signatures after the plan was developed in collaboration? After 25 hours of dialogue and data gathering and input and ample opportunities for feedback, I guess I just would be questioning why wouldn't we receive it?
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I could answer that question as why I wouldn't sign. And it's related to the budget. That my understanding is that the state aid grant requires a specific program budget worksheet as part of the grant submission. It's a formatted Excel worksheet. And according to the guidance documents, downloadable document that must accompany the American Indian Education Aid application at the time of submission and must align to the AIEA award estimate. The budget worksheet must detail the projected expenditures outlined with the program plan narrative. So that's the piece that's kind of missing from the budget that I'm looking at currently.
It doesn't have the same format, so what part of what's missing in terms of?
The detailed projected expenditures. So like here, I'll just do an example. Contracted services, it looks like we budgeted $15,720. Is that, I know it's small, I gotta line this up, so I'm looking at the right line. Yep, so it just, we need to know, like, what's the plan for those contracted services? Have some of those contracts already been fulfilled? And then there's also the issue of the reserve account, or restricted account that was mentioned in this year's audit, that those funds have to be spent first. Is that correct, Simone?
That is correct.
So kind of want to know where we're at with that, because that's on top of what looks to be a sizable increase from last year. We're looking at $519,000 in state aid this year, on additional $100,000. So just kind of need to know, where are we actually at with this budget? Have we spent down that reserve at this point?
I can help you with that answer. So great questions. So generally, when we do a proposed budget to MDE, it looks like this. They apparently want a new Excel spreadsheet worksheet. When you submitted, MDE did not say, they didn't come back and say, fill out this worksheet, correct?
Correct.
So what I recommend is that I think I already did this a day or two ago, reach out to MDE and ask for that Excel worksheet.
Oh, it's available. I have it
Okay.
right here, and they have examples on how it should be filled out.
Okay, so if you want to, I mean, we'd be happy to help with that. That would be normally something the department would do. But I know we're in a transition, so we'd be more than happy to help with that. As far as the narrative as to what contracted services, I know we've approved some contracts that have come through. So that, again, I'd ask for help from the department for. So if you email that to me, or T. Gray or somebody, so we can get hold of it, I can have someone in our department fill that out for you, until Sheila becomes familiar with all of that. And, and as far as the reserve is concerned, generally we use the reserved, we don't start with that number, we use that at the end of the year. So if this is how it normally is, if the program is overspent, we take funds down from the reserved fund, and make it all correct. So if it's overspent by $50,000, we draw down 50 from the reserve fund. That's why it's called a restricted fund balance. So generally, that is how we use restricted fund balances.
Okay, so when I was reading the audit, there was a statement that the auditors, or that was just included in there, let's see. The district applies restricted resources first when an expense is incurred for the purpose for which both restricted and unrestricted fund balance is available. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So this would be the unrestricted, right?
That
And
is
the other one
correct.
would be the restricted?
Yeah, and
But
you-
you're saying you actually do it opposite of
Well,
what's here?
In most of our other programs, that's how we do it. However, we can certainly do whatever you want. If you want us to, or no, it's not us. If we want us as a collective team to build in that $114,000 to begin with, and you know that you're gonna use it towards staffing or a program, et cetera, we can certainly do that. I'm game to we could do exactly, we can add the 114 to that. I would like, is on the Excel spreadsheet, Amber, is there a spot for the restricted fund? Do they have that?
Yeah,
built?
there's supplementary, let's
Good.
see, there's
So we can add that
additional
number in there
tabs.
and then include all of this as well.
Because that would fall into additional funding that supports American Indian
Of course,
education.
we want to spend it, absolutely.
Can I just ask, how does a reserve get built in a situation like this?
That's a good question. So if the funds weren't all spent in a current year, they get put into a fund balance. Because we don't ever take the money away from the program. It keeps staying with you, and it just stays with you into the following year.
So, and this is just based on the program guidance I've looked at, that there's a process for a carryover of funds, and if you don't follow the process, you don't get to carry them over.
I thought that was titled.
No, it is with state aid. I actually just went through that wording on everywhere
Or there gotta be a public announcement?
Specifically, there's a specific.
Is that the
ordinance.
public
Well, you know,
announcement?
they also just recreated a restricted fund balance for American Indian. That just happened last year, so it's new for us as well. Yeah. I was just kind of curious on how a reserve balance is, because prior to this, I was under the impression that you couldn't carry over your Title VI
We
funds and you
couldn't.
couldn't carry over your state aid funds, so I'm just curious on how this got built.
That's all new.
So this is just from last year, this 114,000 that we didn't spend? It was
Yes.
all accrued last year.
Well, that's where we kept, so finance keeps an internal audit as well, that the school auditors audit.
Mhm.
So,
I see you, Gray. I'll call you in a second.
yeah,
I'm just one on the committee.
yeah, so, yes, 114,000 was not spent last year.
Okay.
So we put it as per MDE now. They allow a restricted fund balance, so we put it there. So now it is on that UFAR's compliance sheet. I think it was difficult for people because there really wasn't a document. We have internal documents that we maintain any balances. Well, now it is on the UFAR's compliance at MDE.
Uh-huh.
So I'm glad they did that. And
So,
what you were-
so it's safe to say that the
Yeah.
funds that have been expended for American Indian Ed programming is still there, still available, still under the oversight of the coordinator to work with the advisory team on where to make those additional expenditures.
And it's
So,
completely up to
right,
you how you
right.
want to spend it. Finance will assist you in any way possible, but we really just keep track of the revenue and expenses for you. Programmatically, that comes from your department and your group, and we will just follow that process. Now, the document you're talking about, we have to do, I know for Title I, Title II, we have to fill out a document if there are any remaining funds over 15%, and then something has to be submitted to the state.
right. And even this budget document that you see up here, even with the state, we're just making a best guess, right? The coordinator, the previous coordinator made some decisions, early decisions on some thoughts on contracted services. Some of them were executed, some of them were not executed. And so it's just like, hey, we're gonna have set aside $50,000 for contracted services, right? And that money's sitting there in that pot, waiting for the coordinator or whomever to expend it. And sometimes it gets spent, sometimes it doesn't. So at the end of the year, there might be 20,000 unspent on what she or he thought would be the expenditures. And that goes for everything. Salaries and benefits may come in higher or lower than anticipated. So everything just depends on, these are estimates and adjustments are made throughout the year. At the end of the day, I want to make sure we're emphasizing the money is there, it's still sitting and waiting for, to be allocated to expenses related to American Indian Ed programming. So we can keep bringing budget updates and sheets and so forth, so you can see where the money is being spent and allocated. But I guess just know that there's some decisions have to be made in the moment or throughout the year, and things come up and people want to do different things, and then the coordinator has the ability to tap into some of those money. Gray was next, and then, go Gray, yep. Then it was Gray, then Don, then T.
I was just gonna say, when you're talking about the year to year, historically, the only funding source that we had that had carryover was JOM. So it sounds like great that there might be a way that we could retain the state aid over a year, but that historically, the state aid, if we didn't use it, lose it, because in the school year, JOM was the only funding source that had carryover. So if we have the ability to, if we have carryover, if we have the ability to not lose that state aid, that would be really great.
Right.
I mean, hopefully we use it all, right? We don't have any extra because we used it all in our students' programming. But if there's things that we have to do to initiate,
Yeah, and that's what Simone was talking about. Historically, yes, but things have recently changed with that thankfully, so we can retain.
Yeah, because a couple years back, there were times when, and Simone could verify, there was years where funds didn't get expended, and I was like, how can we not spend all the money? Don't give anything back, ever give anything back to the state or the government, spend it on the kids. Our kids need stuff. So I'm not gonna get my soapbox on that. So Don, then T.
So Sheila will get to say how she wants to spend this money.
Yes,
So if she wants to hire people,
yes,
that'd be her choice.
yes.
And then, and how does APAC fit into that?
Well, AIPAC's goal is to, part of, is advisory. So as the plans are being, sorry about that, as Sheila will be presenting plans, like, hey, here's what's coming down the pike, you know, their ideas are on, like, if we
Right.
go back to some of those recommendations, right, or things that may come up from the new recommendations. There might be ideas that come up, and then she's gonna say, hey, here's some things that she's thinking about doing, maybe hiring another pair for half a year, right? And so she could, I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Obviously, through conversation, we always go through the same process. Make sure you look at the budget. I always make sure all my coordinators or leaders go to Simone, like, hey, if you have the budget money and you want to do this, okay, just know what that means, right? It's a one-year position. Make sure you know it's one-year position so that we don't create something that's ongoing. So it's under her direction
When
through
is the end of the
consultation.
contract year? I'm just,
July, June what?
June 30th.
June 30, okay,
Yeah, June 30th.
okay.
But yeah, it's up to the coordinator, and then he or she, in this case, she, you know, gets feedback from AIPAC. Your job is to make sure, like, hey, how is that aligned? Which are great questions. How is that aligned to these goals that we have identified in the plan? Because the funds should support those goals that have been identified. It was Teague. Yeah.
I didn't have too much more to add to that, I guess. So as the Title VI chair, I feel very hesitant to sign on to anything. It's been a really it's been a struggle this year to be invited and be able to participate in a lot of these processes. And I feel like we did have questions that weren't really answered, and I think they were fairly important questions. In terms of like the 504 forms and where we are with that, you know, where are the actual forms located? Are we filling out these government documents with fidelity? That's my biggest concern, is just kind of being liable for these decisions that we didn't necessarily get to take part in. That's where I'm coming from.
And as we move forward, that's where any of these things, as you think about all the things that were hurdles and bumps or things that were not communicated or shared, this is where, moving forward, make sure the meetings are really structured so that if you need some data around that, then the coordinator has ample time to work through the process to get it. That if you need some explanations around budgets, that you bring the budget sheets here. She can walk through it. And we always saying, like, Simone or whomever can come and explain it. So moving forward, I hear what you're saying now, and how do we, I always use the word reset, how do we reset to move forward so that we can find ourselves in a situation where you are feeling comfortable signing off on things because you feel like you got the information that you need. I will go here, then back to Dee. Yeah.
Okay, so just on this, I'm calling it a carry forward. In the guidance document here, it says within Minnesota statutes 2023, so this is new, section 124D.81 subdivision 2B are the terms for the carry forward of American Indian Education Aid funds if your district was unable to complete the planned program. And it says here you may carry forward and expend up to half the remaining funds. So did we actually have $228,000 we hadn't spent?
No, I would say it's the 114.
Okay, so it's not the 50% that's required. Okay, and then there is a carry forward request that's required to carry forward funds that's on MDE's website. That this document should be filled out and sent to MDE by April 1st. Statute requires the following information: district name and number, and then a narrative to explain why the aid wasn't expended in the designated fiscal year. And then also includes an area where it just please explain specifically how the district or school intends to expend the funds. So I guess I'm just like, retroactively
title.
asking like what
Yeah.
these are.
Yeah,
And
title's
then,
the same way, but that would be sent to Sheila and she can fill that out by April 1st and sign it. And
right, I'm just talking about last year, cause this was
Oh.
the process last year too,
Yeah.
so, and then, it also includes an APAC certification piece, so like when there is a carry forward, that does have to come through APAC, and get all of the APAC signatures on it, to do things the way statute says we need to do things. So I'm just clarifying that process was not used last
Do you
year
get
for
to
this
keep the
reserve.
114 or only half of it?
we get to keep the 114,
Okay,
the
cool.
way I look at it,
All
yes.
right. I like the way you look at it.
And also, just remember that sometimes one time's money, right? So just you have to be careful how you expend it, because you don't want to create a brand new position banking on that money, and that money, the aid
Right.
comes back next year and it goes away. So you always have to be careful. But again, I always say, don't leave a dime on the table. Don't give it back to the government if you don't need to, or the state if you don't need to. If you have a big project that you want to do and you want to say, hey, let's squirrel away. I'm saying squirrel away meaning keep it in the kitty, $30,000, and because you want to do something big next year for the kids, less grand, then you know you have that expenses. So it's like any other budget. You figure out how to leverage the dollars as best as you can. T?
I guess circling back to our plan, what do you see as the main changes? Like what things have we improved or changed from last year? Just so we can kind of see.
Some of the, go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, no, just what were the adjustments that were made?
Yeah, and don't forget some of these things are all linked in here. So the plan from last year is also a resource. So some of the main changes in here are all these ideas and thoughts came from APAC, came from leadership, came from from all of our leaders on those who support American Indian students. I changed the goals, so the goals would be more realistic and in terms of what we were connecting them to. And there was a process that we used to go step by step to say, okay, this is the goal area. Let me pull that for you. Give me a good example. So as I pulled it off, just one quick second. So area one, so this is on the board. Area one was, one of the spaces. So one of the things that we talked about with the advisory group is, under area one, what do you see as things that we could do as strategies to improve outcomes? So it wasn't my ideas. These were not my ideas. These are ideas came from parent advisory group and other leaders. Like, hey, these are the things that we should be doing. And all I did was summarized it and captured it in a to codify it, pull it all together. So the big difference is we don't have goals that are way out of bounds, like saying through these plans we're going to increase graduation rates by up to 100% or 90%, right? It doesn't have something like that, because again, this is meant to, and I always point out to this is meant to scale up and enhance programming. It's not meant to be the end-all be-all. These are extra dollars that are meant for American Indian students on top of what the district is already doing, to give our kids more opportunities for field trips and outings and other support staff that can help them and all those things. So this plan does identify things that those folks and these funds can do. So those, in my mind, those are some of the biggest differences from last year's. And was also recommended with my final conversation with the co-chairs was to think about it as a baseline year, because I think the goal with MDE is to have the plan actually made in spring now versus waiting into the fall, because now the plan is being asked for us like in October or whatever the month.
June.
In
We have to do another plan.
Right, so we have to do another plan in June, which makes more sense,
Yeah,
because
it does.
we're then planning for the year. We're not waiting into the year.
It's like you're 4 months into the year.
We're 4 months into the year, then the plan is due, and
Yeah.
so we've already started the program, and we've already spent the money, and it just doesn't make sense. So this was meant to be, so you might see things in here saying, it's going to establish a baseline, right? And it really, all of these strategies, as you see up here, these action steps, they didn't come from me. This came exactly from parents, you all, staff we work with students saying these are the things we should be doing. Amber.
Okay, so enrollment, state count, we went up 343 students, American Indian. This is a self-identified students. How is this tracked and how is this, an increase of this size achieved?
I want to let Simone explain, because even we were surprised, like, Simone, can you share where do we get the numbers
Yeah,
from and answer that question,
I
please?
actually contacted our Mars coordinator before I came here, and.
Everyone doesn't know what a Mars coordinator is, so
Okay,
can you?
so our Mars coordinator tracks all of our enrollment, and, it's a big part of the district, that's really how we get our funds, right? The more enrollment we have, the more funds. So, Phil, the North American Indian counts on our last fall Mars submission was 866 on 1225. Those numbers I think are different, because the day he took those were different. I ran numbers on Tuesday, and we have 881 North American Indian students. That is based on MDE's racial codes. The federal codes are where the discrepancies come from, with students being designated as 2 or more races. So that's where the discrepancy, so the state recognized if it says white and American Indian, they take 1, where on the federal side, they take 2 or more.
Okay, so I just wanna clear up, like, just because somebody is 2 or more races, they aren't always American Indian plus another race.
I know,
So does somebody look at that actually?
It all is sent to MDE. All we do is report what families fill out. The family fills out those designations, and so the Mars coordinator gathers that input, and there are many files, A and B files that are sent October 1, December 1, again on 1/2 he did another run. So all those files are sent as a whole to MDE, and then it's identified there. It's not identified at our level.
So there's no actual checking of those 2 or more races and saying,
Yeah.
50% of these are actually American Indian. We're
Right.
counting people who, I guarantee if you're just saying it's all 2 or more races,
Yeah.
you are counting people who are not American
Sure.
Indian.
That's why we try to focus on the state one that's a
Yes.
little more accurate.
So, but I don't,
Yeah.
none of us here at the district makes that rule. We send the file as the parents fill in that designation, and we send that entire file to MDE, and that is where it's determined.
So,
And I'm not sure if someone really goes through each file and manually looks at it. I mean, I don't know how they gather that information, if it's electronic, and, it identifies what's checked, and then they run the numbers that way.
My understanding of other districts and how that they receive that same kind of information and they have to go in themselves and correct all those 2 or more races. You've got a list of Mars numbers, give me all the 2 or more races, and then they have to actually manually go in and look and correct. There's an opportunity for districts to correct that number based on those 2 or more races. I just want to be sure that we don't get in trouble for misidentifying and students as American Indian who are not American Indian. Because this is a significant increase in total aid compared to last year. The other question I have, so it's a preliminary budget. We have a lot of TBD as far as liaisons listed. To me, this means we will likely have to immediately put in for an amendment because we lost a coordinator for several months. That impacts how much, that 96,000 is redistributed because there wasn't someone in that position. We have 5 homeschool liaisons, which I do believe we have. And then there is a cultural immersion para, which I don't believe is filled, but it might be Jamie, I'm not sure, but it's listed as TBD, so I would really like to know the names in those positions to make sure that it's, we're being as accurate as we can. So the way this looks is we are paying for, let's see, 5 full-time, and all five of our liaisons are paid out of the state aid grant, 0 are paid out of Title VI. Because we only have 5 right now, right? Because this isn't, and clarify if I'm misreading this, this is, when it says 5.0 position FTE and total FTE is 1.0, because like for the coordinator and for the clerical is listed as half. I understand that half comes from state aid, half of their salary comes from title, okay? But the 5 homeschool liaisons, that looks like 100% comes out of the state aid grant. And then we've also budgeted for a cultural immersion para that hasn't been hired, so at most, even if we hire someone yesterday, that would only probably be 22,000.
Yes.
And then, so to me, with regard to this budget, we already need to amend it just, because of those empty positions. The other question I have related to this is, total FTE is 1.0. And then there's additional mentoring and tutoring services stipend. Is that for the liaisons, or is that other people?
Where are you looking, Amber?
On the budget sheet, this very first column, it says homeschool liaisons, 5.0 total FTE. Two columns over, additional mentoring and tutoring services.
There you go. Okay.
It looks like 1 additional FTE. Is that a different position, or are our liaisons used for that? Because now I'm confused on what a 1.0 FTE is.
I'd have, so 10,000 to me is probably a stipend, so it might be, someone doing additional work to that. I can't speak to the actual details of the program. Perhaps Gray or Sheila can look into that.
Okay. And then another, 1 column over, it talks about extended contract hours for the 5 liaisons. So how do we extend a contract that is already a 1.0?
So extend contract hours at 3 weeks each. So at the end of the school year, the department head can ask for a contract extension, and that's how the process would go. And then it goes to a committee, and they would approve any extensions.
And they do summer programming.
Yeah.
Yep.
that's
Oh,
summer.
yeah.
That's what we use the extension
Right.
for, is our
Summer programming.
So I guess my question is, are people being paid time and a half? Because 1.0
No.
FTE
No.
is 1.0 FTE,
Negative.
and anything beyond that would be overtime per labor laws, unless a 1.0 is actually 0.8, because you're not used the entire school year, they have their summers off. I'm thinking of it like a teacher. A teacher is 1.0 FTE, they're paid through the summers. The way this looks on here is, it looks like our liaisons are paid through the summers with a 1.0 FTE.
If it's hourly, it would be a 40-hour week,
Mm-hmm.
and then anything over that would be overtime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I was in a position last year. I did that summer program for the whole,
yeah,
I think, got paid the same.
yeah.
Hours are short though too. It wasn't a full day, it was like a 9 to 2 or
So I
something
guess I
like that.
just really need to know, what is a 1.0 FTE for a liaison?
For the summer?
It's a full-time job.
Because that's
That's a 1
40
point.
hours a week for
Yeah.
the entire year.
Someone,
Is that
In my
52 weeks a
brain.
year? Is that 52
is
weeks?
someone,
or is that-
1 second, someone sharing in the, Gray, who's that sharing? They were trying to chime
It
in.
was me, Brenda.
Brenda, can you go ahead and share what you were sharing, Brenda?
Yep, I said it is full-time during the school year, and they are hourly employees. They are not paid in the summer, but his contract extension would mean that they are working extra hours in the summer. Because they are not getting a regular paycheck, so that's where their contract extension is. Their 1.0 FTE is a 9-month school year contract.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying
FTE is
that.
Full-time equivalent.
Yeah.
equivalent.
Yeah.
So full-time equivalent, thank you.
I think stuck on the FTE part.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yep.
Now, you had mentioned Jamie was very likely the cultural immersion para?
That has been reassigned to Denfeld, right?
Okay. So that instead of TBD should say Jamie.
Right.
Okay. So then we actually only have 4 homeschool liaisons, because that's a
So when
totally
is that gonna be
different
effective
position.
though? James' position, when will that be effective?
I believe you
She's
said it
already
was, she had already been
She's
moved
already
this
here.
fall.
But, oh, she's doing that
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning of the school year.
she's been doing that?
Yep,
That job?
she's here to support the indigenous cohort that's here.
So then, did Jamie get the pay raise that matches the cultural immersion para SWAT?
No,
Cause it was
Negative.
20-something minimum.
Well, it's not, she's not an
She's not.
immersion, it's not an immersion program. It's a cultural para. It's not a language-based, the cohort's not language-based at
But
Denfeld.
she is the cultural immersion paraprofessional?
That's what we were just told.
she was the paraprofessional.
I don't think
Oh,
she
but
does
she's
that.
not the cultural immersion.
But you're describing in here, the culture, in Masabakong, that para is does not consider the culture immersion person, the para position in Masabakong? Right, so I thought that was her, right? But now she's just up here, nothing's changed, she's just been,
No, she was,
she's
from my
been
understanding,
reassigned.
she was the homeschool liaison for Lowell and Myers Wilkins, but she was the liaison for the school at Lowell, not just the Masabi Kong program, because we do have indigenous students at Lowell.
And then who's the other person then? She left then. Teague, yeah. So that's what I'm saying, like in terms of like those, how those different titles.
She served indigenous students we have indigenous students at Lowell that are not a part of Misabe Khan.
Correct.
So she served the students, all students at Lowell and Myers Wilkins. So she was a homeschool liaison. She was not a paraprofessional associated with Misabe Khan specifically. That has been her role for really long time.
I guess
Like,
what I'm
when my
getting,
daughter was in kindergarten.
but I
and
get,
freshman.
just like you get tripped over on FTE,
Yeah,
even homeschool liaisons are under the para contract.
right.
Right, so when I think of them, I think of their paras, so I'm not thinking of the titles. I'm thinking of paras and paras and para, but they might have different titles associated with them, they be in different spaces. So that's why, don't get me,
Confusing on top of confusing.
yeah, I consider a para as a para as a para, because I can't keep up with all the different things if it's a para position. So she was a para, and whatever that title was at Lowell. Myers and Lowell, but now she's been reassigned here, and it's still a para position, so there was no additional pay for that reassignment, because it was simply a reassignment.
It was a lateral move.
Yeah.
So the cultural immersion para that's listed in this budget is not it's not a position that's currently filled.
So I'm saying,
Yeah, it's Teague's old position,
Right.
I believe.
And that supports Wasabi Kong specifically.
Yes, because there's one open position still
at Myers.
at Myers, and that's only if the previous coordinator, if Jen was going to replace that position, because there was conversations if she was going to replace that position or not replace that position, right? So, and Gray knows that better than I do, but I know there was conversations on whether it's going to be replaced or not replaced, and then there was discussions on even adding an additional one over at AOC AEO, but those things have just all in pause mode right now.
Okay, and I'm just bringing this up because it's on this budget that we're talking about right now, so I'm just clarifying, is this a filled position? And if it's supporting Wasabi Kong, we can, unless they're like, and I don't know how you would do it, unless they're only serving the American Indian students in the Wasabi Kong program, we can only pay for a proportion of that, based on the achievement gaps that exist and state statute. So,
Yes, and I'm saying this because Sloan is here, and at the end of the day, we've reached out to MD many, many times. At the end of the day, anytime it comes down to the funds, if a coordinator says, "Hey, I want to do something," we say, "Oh, let's find out if it's allowable. Hold on, it's allowable or not allowable." And sometimes we say, "Hey, this may not be allowable." Reach out to MD, and they say, "Pretty much, I'm being honest. Get out the way. If it's supporting American Indian students, and that's what they wanna do, allow it to happen.
So that hasn't been
Correct.
my experience when
I'm just saying, I'm
I've
just
gone on
sharing.
to, they had,
So they're not making you fill out an algebraic equation to
No.
get it done?
No.
And I'm just sharing, but that's why I have Simone here, so you can listen, hear directly from
Well,
Simone.
I have looked at, you know, with purchases and whatnot, cause I have to always follow the
Mhm.
audit side
Yeah.
and make sure everything's allowable, and at least twice since I've been here, I'll email MDE and I'll say, is this allowable purchase? And they'll say, yes, it's correct.
Yep,
So,
yep.
and then I have that in writing, and that's all I ask for.
all October,
Yep,
all of
yep.
November,
Yeah.
they had really nice, like, kind of drop-in,
Mhm.
work sessions. I dropped in on several, so I know there, you know, there was somebody there to answer exactly those kind of questions. Is this allowable? So,
So it's written like they gotta make them do an algebraic equation, but in real life, it's just a plus or a yes or no. Is that how I would look at it?
Allowed or not allowed?
Not allowed or not
allowed or not allowed, and, based on what other districts were asking, this would not be allowable. Just based on the meetings that I sat in on and the questions that I heard and asked myself, so.
And that's where it comes to be honest, sometimes it comes down to AIPAC through the advisory saying, okay, how are we gonna fund this thing? If you want to spend the money on a para to support the language and it's in the immersion program, you can do that. And we know we can get it, not, I say get away with it, we know it's allowable, we're not gonna get pushback either, cause we're saying it has been decided by the parent advisory and the coordinator to allocate this money for it. Now, I guess this keeps being brought up as a conversation too, like, that's where moving forward, I want you to have this conversation in earnest then with Sheila on if that's something that the group, if the committee still wants to do and advise Sheila doing, then let her know that. So then we can do the plan adjustment, meaning if the parent group is saying, hey, we don't think we should be using these funds to support the Ojibwe programming at Lowell, that can be done. But we don't want to say that it's a decision that's being made by the committee, not the district making a decision to stop funding a position that is supporting the languages through Masabacon.
I don't think we want to pull any support from
Right.
the Ojibwe immersion, but we can't recommend that state statute is ignored.
T.
I guess I just had questions in terms of, so these are the positions that are written out, and we have budget cuts coming up, right? So is this the week that we're supposed to know which staff are cut, or?
Not this week, and we've shared many times that the budget reductions that the district is going through is only general ed funded staffing, so.
Ours is fixed.
Yours is fixed, so no reductions are coming. The only way it would be reduced here, and thankfully we got more money, right? So actually the budget went up, so we can, there's more money to spend. But the only reduction would come as if it was like a big reduction that came from the grant itself, and that's not happening. So the answer is, the American Indian Ed programming is not gonna be impacted by the budget cuts that are coming.
Okay, so we're not losing staff, we're not losing, okay.
No, not anything that's funded through this grant, no.
Thank you.
We're actually gaining, right?
You're actually gaining funds to do other things like, a thought was to add another position over at ALCAO. That's something that Sheila can revisit and say if that's something she still wants to do or not do.
I think another thing you have to revisit is at Masabicum, we do have kids, if you look at Infinite Campus, our teachers can identify that we've missed some kids. That should identify as AI, but we don't know we don't ask teachers, and as a coordinator, I don't know whose job that is. I don't know whose
Only the families can edit their
The census.
race codes in there, like
Yeah, we
staff
can.
cannot go in and change that.
Yeah, we
but-
can't, I know that,
yeah.
but who's responsible for,
Thank you.
telling these parents, if you are this, blah, blah, blah.
I think
okay.
staff can tell that families to do that, but they have to be the ones
those are conversations that JP has had with us
Mhm.
about some students at Denfeld
Mhm.
At
that,
Denfeld as well. I'd
But
like
that's
to
where
get
the-
school board
where
members.
he's had conversations with students where he's noticed that, you know, they come to his room, we know they're indigenous, and he looks in their infant campus and there isn't that coding. So he has a conversation with them like, do you identify as this? And then he can help them with that process, but it has to be the student or the family that
Actually do
is
it.
the one that's actually logging in and like changing those
Are the parents
demographics.
aware of that though? Like, who reaches
Probably
out to these
not.
parents to say,
Well,
hey, you know, that's what I question.
I would probably say I know there's been lots of efforts to make parents aware of this, of the importance of identifying. Now, whether parents, listen to those newsletters or, the coordinators over the years, using the homeschool liaisons, there's been lots and lots of, you already know, if you've been here long enough, there's been a lot of efforts to try to get families who are American Indian to self-identify, because the district we can't force anyone to identify their race and
Well, the two
ethnicity.
or more races thing can mess that
What
up
does
too.
this two more races mean? I don't, does it
If
mean
they're-
I'm identify as white and
So like on the
Anishinaabe,
form,
or-
when you fill out your form at the beginning of the year, like your enrollment stuff, it'll have the boxes of like identify, like, they put gender and they put Hispanic or not Hispanic, and then they have the list of races, and they'll say like Black, Caucasian, American, Hispanic has that big list. And if you mark more than one box, and we have lots of students who are more than,
Biracial
they
or-
may be
yeah.
like Caucasian and Native American, or Black and Native American, and so if they check both more than one box, the federal code says, oh, you check more than one box, you automatically get like drawn into this category that says two or more races. And in the two or more races category, it doesn't break down what you check. It just says you check two or more races. And we had a period of time where, I think Stephanie was in on it, where they went through, the department, the clerical went through all of those students who had checked two or more races and looked at what were the boxes that they checked. And it was a huge process, but they went through those and they looked at, was one of those boxes AI? And so then they were able to like manually do that flag in Infinite Campus for those like data numbers. But when they do more than one race, it automatically pulls them out of the American Indian number because there's two or one. And there's nothing
and
we
it-
can do about it. It's a federal thing. We've tried to change it. We've tried to lobby.
I got you.
We have no control over it.
And in some situations, they designate it quickly to white. So so here's an order of questions. Phyllis, then Stephanie, then Amber.
And that's one thing I would like to say when I worked for the school district was as a, American Indian Youth Advocate, that's what it was called then. Was one thing, I had access to Infinite Campus and the students that I worked with that were on my caseload, and I did look at that, what their code was. And if they didn't have it, all you can do is you can tell the student or get a hold of the family, say, hey, you know what, so-and-so is not marked Native American, and, it'd be nice if you could do that, call the school and get it changed. And, cause otherwise, if not, like they were saying, you're just gonna be marked as a white student. And so that's where our programs will lose out money. It's like, you don't want our programs to lose money. We need to have as many students as possible, in our programs. So that's one thing, like I said, I would do when I worked for the school district, would get a hold of the families and the students and let them know. So, we can only do so much.
So much.
I was-
Stephanie, then Amber.
I was basically going to say the same thing answering that question. So it was my job to check those boxes, check who did what, and I would literally pull forms. I had huge binders that I had in alphabetical order. That's what they looked through for the audit, and I would just check one by one. And then we, as a department, as the paras, as the liaisons, as the advocates, would reach out to students on their caseload. We would sometimes even like host an event like, hey, we have free food. While you're here, can you please make sure you fill out this thing? We want to make sure your kid is counted so we get this money. But it took a lot of time and effort. But it is the family's responsibility. But if we know that someone's not being counted, we try to make that family aware, and then we just beg and plead.
I'm just gonna say historically, what you guys described is how the process had been. MDE has done a lot of work in how that information is reported. Jane Horsted talked about it at last year's MIEA conference, that even when someone checks more than one box, similar to Hispanic students, if they check the American Indian box, they are counted in the American Indian state count, right? They kind of fix
The
that.
state count.
The state count.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here is the state count. The two or more, so I'm concerned that the accurate number is the 636 MDE number, and that 979 incorporates all the two or more races that are identified, and then,
I think that's last year's count, right?
this says,
Where we were at last year.
this says state, this is what was on this little piece of paper,
Preliminary.
state count only per Philip Paulson. So they fixed that within the state system, so I'm concerned that inflation of that number is not accurate, because in the state count, once they check American Indian, similar to Hispanic, they're counted as American Indian no matter what other box they check. And that Jane Harstead said, don't pay attention to the federal count, that will be wrong, our count is the accurate run, so that's the concern I have.
I was gonna say, often the federal and the state count will look very different initially because that two or more races automatically like gets pulled out. So the federal numbers automatically are incorrect because all those kids that are AI that are those two or more races are pulled out of that federal count. So often in the beginning, before we go through and like remediate that for those two or more races forms, the federal and the state numbers will look drastically different because of that coding.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to, as facilitator, be mindful of time, and we're still on one area, and we have a couple of meaty things still to go. I guess I would ask, I know there's some expressions of concerns related to signing off on things. I'm just wondering, how do we move forward, because, there has been a lot of dialogue on data and conversations on the plan. They were developed collaboratively. And I know there's still some questions on things, and we can continue to have, whether it's Simone on the budget or someone on whatever other programming, we can continue to have people come and share like we've been attempting to do over the last couple months here. I just don't want, I don't want anything to impact funding that we do get from the state, and I'll leave it at that. So I don't know how to move forward with not having signatures. I would have to communicate with them again that we were not able to get signatures in spite of, and I can only be honest saying, in spite of efforts to be collaborative, in spite of efforts to provide data, in spite of efforts to share information, to develop the plans, I'm not sure what else I can do. T.
Akwayashi, circling back, I think the Title VI committee should spend some more time trying to do public outreach this year. Maybe more events tabling and saying, hey, this is the form that we need families to fill out. We could especially do that at like round dances and powwows and.
We could have had a table at 13 Moons this last weekend, which we have in the past, and we didn't.
So I think that's an area where we have just,
The powwow club.
we haven't really known how to fill that gap, but I think now we're getting more comfortable with the process.
I was at a meeting for, the immersion programs. I think we're gonna have, I think it's, I forget what night it is.
Community event.
But we're gonna, it's gonna be an information night with, I think a lot of stuff is gonna be done online now.
Oh, you talking about
Remember,
the,
we used to have those paper things now, but for students too. Enrolled, it's gonna be online now, so.
it is,
I don't
she's
know
talking about
if
the
there's a
centralized enrollment
online
process.
JOM applications are available for parents online, or, are they?
We'll have to look, I think, to make sure, but.
American Indian education.
Okay, is there a way forms done and getting more publicity for them.
Yeah, we can talk with Adele
Mhm.
and,
Through social media,
I
through,
really need to get it.
because I think she also has started sending communication straight through Parent Square as well. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
Parent
the
Square.
answer is yes, we can, and
Next week.
which we should continue to strive to do. The team should continue to strive to do it. It's just, at the end of the day, parents have to be the ones who sign up.
And I think I like the idea of you guys, Title VI, reaching out to parents more and, giving them, letting them know this is what it is, and I think we'll get more AI. I always feel like artificial intelligence.
Right,
when I-
yeah.
when I use that.
When she said the first time, my mind was
Right,
thinking
yeah,
AI too.
nice.
Like, I knew
That's what I think about it, like, okay, all right, maybe they can.
I think all the acronyms are being used,
School district.
overlapping.
Oh, we should print some of these and send them to them.
So then,
Yeah.
I'm going to surface it officially then, what's the, because we're in an official meeting, what's the next step? What would the committee like me to do? Well, actually, to be, I'll do it, because I'm transitioning everything over to Sheila as of today. How do we proceed with the lack of signatures from our AIPAC on our plan? Should I ask for an extension again? Should I, at what point would there be satisfaction? I'm just wondering next steps.
I would want an accurate student count. Like we said, we believe that's 2 or more races that we know cannot all be American Indian, so that 900 number isn't an accurate number. Okay, so I need an accurate number. Or as close to accurate as we can,
Well,
within a
Phil said
margin of
as
error.
January 2nd, it was 881.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would need that, and then I would need the budget filled out on in the workbook that's required for the grant. Easy peasy.
Well, Sheila, we're meeting tomorrow, so we can pull up that
Oh,
worksheet
definitely.
and I'll show you how to
And just
do
fill
it.
it in.
You can,
Yep.
Sheila can get that done.
And then a signature could be within a week.
I didn't give them, I just told them when we were meeting. I didn't tell them when I would send it in. I made sure that I didn't do that this time. I didn't want to overpromise,
Yeah.
overcommit.
I granted, you're gonna get 519 if you put in
It might.
818.
Yeah, he's
Bring
got
your number down.
959 in there, so it might.
Bring your number down.
It would just have to be shared. And in that point, we could take an email vote if everybody approves like the new budget, that number agrees, that's likely an accurate number, then.
So if that's something that can be done within the next few days, get an email out and
Sounds good.
just vote on it.
Mhm. It could be a quick Google, just little quick ways to send out just to AIPAC, to the, voting members, to everyone, but then obviously voting members, then voting members have to approve.
So do you want this, reduced from 979 to 881? Cause we can have that put in here and then when Sheila does the Excel workbook, we can put in the adjusted number.
Because even with that, it's the moment in time, like, there's nothing extra that the district does besides report what's in the system. So I don't,
To be perfectly honest, I would go just by state because
Amber,
you can't fix the federal designation.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the state number here.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
because, I mean, Simone, could you just
It's a
clarify one more time?
it's a
Where do we get our state aid? I mean, where's that number coming from?
it's come from the MARS
Mhm.
that gets submitted to the Department of Education based on the information that's filled out by the families.
Right, so
So,
that, I guess what I'm getting to, that is an accurate number in terms of what we get in our system, because we don't have a way of parsing out whether the students who checked both races, we don't have a mechanism in the district where we systematically go in and
right, it has to come from the
it has to come from the family, so I don't,
And it sounds like they did a campaign when Stephanie was there years ago. Maybe that's something that can be worked on, but,
can,
when this budget was done, I'm sure it was a snapshot of that day. So,
Yeah.
Phil ran one on January 2nd, so, that number can change. My recommendation is you've already submitted this to the Department of Education. They're waiting signatures,
Mhm.
so based on that day, that was the number. And, I would leave it at that.
So I would recommend to the
But
committee
it's
then,
not up to me.
can the co-chairs meet with Sheila to
Yes.
review the updated document and the number, and then collaboratively say, yep, this is what we're gonna send to the AIPAC committee for approval, up or down vote, because I think that's the only that's the only path forward, because it comes down to whether, there's, enough satisfaction by co-chairs to have signatures. T?
Where are we on the Indian Education Formula Grant? Is that gonna be Sheila creating that grant and that application, or who is handling that? Cause I will have to sign off on that for Title VI.
Yes.
But I haven't
Well, we're
heard
meeting
anything
Friday
about
for
it.
Title VI, right?
Right,
Yes.
Yeah.
but the formula grant is the district's end that we sign, so I'm wondering, is that our next step?
Yeah, and that's what's based off of, and you all have information from the last meeting on that, because didn't we hand out all of the,
We do not, you haven't given us like the,
no, I'm talking about the,
anything from the easy thing specifically.
yeah, because Easy is a portal.
Yeah, it's an online portal.
Yeah, it's just an online
You would
portal.
have to go in, cause you have the sign-in.
Yeah, I'm saying, but it's based off of the worksheet that Jen Garbo created. Remember, because I didn't do anything with that. All I did was what was entered was whatever she had in there.
Oh, the title budget from
Right.
the last year.
Right, which we handed out in one of these meetings. And I think it's even linked in here somewhere too. So that budget worksheet I'm saying that all came from, I didn't do that, came from Jen Garbo. All I had to do was submit what was in the sheet. And to be honest, if finance does it, I just sign off on it, because it's already stuff that Jen Garbo had already entered. I didn't have to really do anything besides sign off on it. So you can, again, it's like anything else. There's opportunities to meet with Sheila, review it again. If things need to be tweaked or adjusted, it can be tweaked and adjusted.
Okay, so Sheila, have you been, I guess, informed on the Title VI formula? So I think we're in year 3 of 4, right? For the easy,
I'll say
I haven't
Four.
gotten to title stuff with her yet.
We're in the last year.
It's been a long week.
Yeah.
For the first week,
Yeah.
last week, and just trying to get stuff down.
Okay.
We just haven't gotten to that.
that's okay, just keep me
Yeah.
posted. I'm here, I would love to see it.
Yep.
But you have a lot to.
Yes, quickly to go.
Yep.
And I know that's what I've,
Good one.
advised, Sheila, to set those meetings up with you all. So, I know that's gonna happen. Oh, it's still battery life. No, I'm always running out of battery. So that's what we'll do moving forward. If co-chairs can meet with Sheila for AIPAC, review that new formatted sheet, review the student count number again, send out an email to the committee, voting members respond to it. That will be the yay or nay, and then that will be, then of course, Sheila, you can work with, if there's an approval, co-chairs to get signatures and then submit.
Got it down.
And then even you can, since it's gonna be redone anyway, it could be your signature, John's signature, and co-chairs. Or leave it in mind since you didn't develop the plan, if you feel
Yeah.
comfortable doing it that way.
Yeah, true.
Yep. We get to, what was the next item, because my computer's down. Do you have does anyone has the
E
agenda up?
program plan evaluation rubric presented to AIPAC.
Okay.
Yep, I
Good.
get these. Sheila, do you wanna help me pass those?
Yeah, sure.
Is your pewter kaput? Can it
No,
go?
it's back up.
That's what my grandson calls it,
Kaput.
pewter. You pewter, Grandma? Hold out all the.
Oh, wow, thank you, yes.
We should go Jalen too.
I know. Cause I thought he wouldn't get a hold of it, so I put it in the closet when I left it at your house.
Yeah.
So I go back after the weekend, and he's like, my computer here.
On Monday.
Thank you, I opened it.
Yeah, I was on my board. I was on my way back.
Okay, all right, I'm just trying to.
It was 6 days
No
on, 8 days
worries.
off.
Yeah.
Worry
It's a
about
sleep
the
job.
thing.
I sleep at night, so.
When little kids are just,
You sleep on the job.
I hope it's,
Not
I
his
get-
school job.
I get paid to sleep on the job.
Knock on the door.
Thought he was helping me to clean all those things, there was nothing left. No, no, I can't put them back on when the kid pulls them on.
people like to, you take it to like Best Buy or something, because it's fixable at all.
So I go, son, grandson, I didn't yell at
Try
him.
not to do that, but I'm.
Your head is
I was like, I didn't wanna hurt
I
his
don't
little
need to
spirits.
computer.
It's computer. He was 2 at that time, he's 7 now.
I guess what I'm gonna do is, actually, I'm gonna go, out of order in terms of, probably makes more sense to first review. So as you see, if you read the first, part of the plan, the first, not plan, the rubric, it says, it shares exactly what this rubric is intended to do. This is meant to really give you, give the committee a good way to assess the programming from this year, right? So look at the plan that was developed last year, which everyone had a chance to look at because we looked at that last year's plan to help develop this year's plan, right? So we already know that happened, and it's meant to just give some feedback on, like, you know, that would help us inform new goals, which, again, we've already developed the plan for the 24-25 school year, which is this year. So in my mind, this also could just be something that could be used for this spring, when we have to develop the plan again. So either one, I guess, chairs, do we want to do this now to just say where we are, and then, or do we hold off until the spring and look at all the information based off of this year's in anticipation for the next year's plan development? It's just in terms of timeline. Does it make sense to do this now?
So.
And this seems like it's before, maybe, and because this seems like this is pretty meaty. If we're gonna do this, it's probably gonna take the whole meeting to do one, and we don't have a whole meeting time to do it. But
I would just say, this is part of, the annual compliance documentation. A program plan evaluation is required to do March 1st. So we can wait and do it at the February meeting, if you recommend that we present our vote of concurrence at the regular school board meeting as opposed to the February 4th committee of the whole meeting. It's basically, when do you want to get us on the agenda with the school board?
either one works. I'm just more concerned about time today to go through this and then kind of.
I'm fine with having people, actually, it's probably better to let people take a moment. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
it's a lot.
information on both of
Right.
these.
Yeah.
And as many district people who could fill out, you know what I mean? This would be very, very useful in like determining what is required for concurrence. Like, we have ideas of what's required for concurrence, but like, is graduation rates, it's closing that gap, is that unachievable in your opinion? And if so, what would a good marker for concurrence be, in your opinion?
Great
Or in
convers-
district officials' opinion?
Great conversation, because that's exactly why we have it on here, and I wanted to surface it, because I'm thinking, let's hold off on this, because in my mind, I want us, as we do this is my 5th year here, if we based off concurrence or not concurrence off of graduation rates, we'll never be in concurrence for decades. So that'd be frustrating for the committee, that'd be frustrating for everybody to always remain in non-concurrence, because it's something that's really lofty in terms of an outcome. My mind says, I'm sorry, this is mine, this is, I would put this out there to the committee. The things that you give in terms of recommendations, if the district is meeting those recommendations, then those should be things that we consider, like, hey, there was recommendations that were given, and did the committee, did the district, do what it said it was gonna do that year for the kids, right? And if they did and honored what was asked, then in my mind, yes, you could consider other data points and other things for concurrence or not concurrence, but I think that would be a way to hold the district accountable for improving outcomes by if we really met their recommendations. For example, I have last year's concurrence, not concurrence, and what I do with the district, with our leadership, we go through and I'm bringing these things up in our teacher and learning equity meetings, I'm bringing it up in our cabinet meetings, I'm bringing it up with our superintendents, because I serve on the senior leadership team meeting. We are constantly reviewing, hey, where are we with the recommendations that were moved forward? So last year, I want to show you quickly, and I'll come to you, lady, I saw your hand. So the committee, I just put it in a different format, something that we can use. So you see recommendation number 1, if you go to the original recommendations, if you don't remember, go to I think the recommendations have been printed out too, that you gave. Yep, so there's paper 2. Always paper, Greg likes paper. So the first recommendation that was given saying AIPAC members, AIPAC committee members, tour sites, where the American Indian liaisons, to get a sense of what they're doing and what their work. So that was one of the recommendations. We responded saying we were gonna do this, right? So here's what the district said it would do in its response, because we have that 30-day, 60-day response. Here's a status update. Here's what we were able to do. And we can only be honest. So if we're saying, if this was one of the recommendations, did we do exactly what was asked? And according to this, the leader said that, yep, they were able to schedule at least one, but due to busyness of individual schedules, not every member was able to go and do that. So circling, Adele says she's gonna be circling back with Ray and Amber to get these tours set up. Amber.
I provided dates and times I would be available, and no response. Just letting my experience stand.
Okay. But that's good to know, because matter of fact, that's good to 1, know. 2, like, how do we make sure that these things do happen? So again, recommendation number 2 was transportation. So this is what was recommended by the committee. Right, and here's what the district said it was going to strive to do, and here's what we've done so far. So we have established an attendance campaign. We have that as a clear focus. We're making sure that our American Indian Ed staff are really working hard to support those kids with transportation. Due to lack of funding, the DTA partnership was disbanded because one of the recommendations was, hey, why don't you continue to do that? Well, we know because ESSER went away, so that partnership, I can say, give a little hint. Can I do it now?
Yes.
All right. Thankfully, we are bringing it back. So it's going to actually kick off on February 3rd. So February 3rd is going to come back, because we were able as a district to, even through our budget reductions and reallocations, the city ended up finding some extra dollars that it had related to COVID relief or whatever thing they had going, not COVID relief, but another pot of TIF money or taxes or whatever.
Tax increment finance.
Wherever they found it. They said, hey, district, we have 300 something, we have money for you to spend on things. What do you want to do? And of course, my first thing was, what did I say? On the kids. And I said, nope, let's get back. Let's get the transportation back. So thankfully, we are getting the transportation back. So kids will be able, and it's even expanded, so kids will be able to, obviously, make sure the high schoolers, be clear, high school students will be able to ride again for free, present their ID, even on the weekends, even in the summer.
That's actually really great. I'm so happy about that. I think public transportation is huge, and I would love to see more of our kids be public transportation users and comfortable on the bus line.
It's a life skill.
It's a life skill, exactly. You're never stuck if you can ride the bus. The vans were a significant part of tribal consultation on March 4th of 2024. We spent a ton of time on it. How many liaisons have been trained to operate the vans, would
I would
be
have to-
my question.
Yeah, I would have to do the assessment. You were gonna-
Oh, I'm one.
No, he's
You're one?
one.
Okay,
I was just
awesome.
able to see if we have to run a list, and that's the stuff that we can get. We can find out how many actually elected to do it because they
That's
don't
the
have
key.
to.
They don't have to.
They don't have to.
No,
Right.
definitely don't
Choice,
have
yeah.
to.
It's a
No.
choice.
I would do that because I'm a coach as well, so.
It's very beneficial when we're asking like liaisons to transport our kids that they are using school vehicles.
School
Because
vehicles.
you'd hate for something to happen in your personal
Yeah.
car.
It's
Yeah.
we have it, safety
Plus,
equipment on there.
vans
It's
have they record, it's got a camera.
Cameras.
Rear-facing camera, so you plug it in, it's already looking in the back, you'll see who's in the back.
so we have the security feature. So again, back to this. So I'm go through all of them because we need to look at where we are.
Yep.
Did we get the recommendation? I'm going circling back to your question is how does the committee work with the district to say, hey, if we do these things, then there's a possibility you would be in concurrence versus always being in non-concurrence. And again, that's up to, the committee obviously to do the voting. I'm suggesting this is one thing that I would be considering.
I guess I'd want the data on how many American Indian students are transported in those vans since we made the recommendation.
And see, I know, and that's what gets tricky because like we don't keep those things, we don't keep actual data on.
It'd have to be at the site.
We had the
level.
sites, we have to start disaggregating it.
And I would assume it'd be primarily liaisons who would be doing that transportation. So if we only have one liaison who's completed that training, I mean, that's a great start.
Integration
Is it enough for
specialist.
concurrence?
But they have to be willing to do it.
They have to be willing to do it, and that comes sometimes is like, okay, what do we have to do to get you to be willing to do it?
Right. And even,
It's working
Or
with
if you're
people
leaving one
within
site to
their,
go to another
yeah.
site,
and getting ahead
Yeah.
of our next conversation, which is planning for, what do we need in terms of data sets to plan for the vote of concurrence or non-concurrence? So one of the things we're gonna talk about is what data do you need? And I would love, before we do any recommendations, before the committee makes any recommendations around something, that if you need data or leaders to come in and speak to those things first, this, for example, if you're like, oh, we want to do something related to reading. Well, I want the opportunity to bring in our reading specialists or coordinators to come in and speak with you on, here are all the things we're doing for kiddos who are American Indian. Here are all the kids in America who are American Indian who are receiving reading interventions. Here are all the kids who are American Indian who are receiving support from our social-emotional behavioral. I would love for you to have that information before there's a recommendation of, hey, you all should do that because we might be doing it. And then the recommendation that you give, I want us to make sure it's something that it's well-informed and it's something then that we could strive to accomplish. Lydia, I know you've been waiting patiently.
After you're done going over this, you might answer them.
Right, and some of you have, so I'll try to go quickly because I'm sensitive to time because I know there's another meeting after this, right?
Yeah, we're gonna keep it brief, huh?
Okay. Number 3, recommend PD with respect to American Indian history culture. So as you recall, we did have that full day of professional development. It wasn't specifically all on American Indian, but there were professional development opportunities, history culture for American Indian, not only on that February date, but also on the last PD date. What was the last PD date?
The 17th.
The 17th. There was also
That was for certified.
they were certified, but there were also something in there, I can't think of what is related to other aspects of history related to American Indian. And wasn't it around treaties and I forget what.
1854.
There you go.
treaty.
So there you go. So there was, I don't remember all this stuff because there's a lot going on. But we're making a concerted effort to make sure that we do provide professional development opportunities to staff as it relates to American Indian heritage culture. And again, one of those things, that's where our PD coordinator, I think she popped into a virtual meeting one time with us. I can make sure she's here. She can share that information with you so you can see like these things I've done, right?
I'm gonna be meeting with her, very soon. She's really excited to,
Andy Schilling, yep.
yeah.
I don't know who's first. I'll go here.
Sorry,
No, I appreciate
Okay.
that. No.
I was just gonna ask, how was the American Indian education coordinator brought into this process, if she was at all?
she would have been.
There wasn't one.
In
I'm saying,
October,
if she was,
there was
yeah,
one.
I'm saying she would have been involved in that. Because the PD, Annie Schilling, the expectation, and she did, was to.
She did have meetings with Jen Garlow.
There you go. I was gonna say to
Oh,
meet
yeah.
with our program leaders, to meet with our coordinators.
Yeah, she was. Yeah,
determine-
we did have
yeah.
meetings with her. I sat in with Jen and Anne,
Annie.
and we
Mhm.
planned that and
So they're involved.
me.
And so were even though it's different, our integration specialists. So everyone is trying to figure out how to make sure that it's, that it's really trying to make sure all students are feeling welcome, connected, their culture, history are, valued and taught to our students and staff. So we did, so again, at least you got a status update on that one. We recommend HR create an action plan for recruitment. She has been, and I didn't link it in here because I was supposed to link it in there. So let me. See if it's here.
We have the email.
Part of it is. I just have a lot of other personal stuff up there for other.
Parents square the same way everyone else signs on.
So Teresa Severance is our HR director, so she's also set to come next month as well to talk about her plan and how she actively, the things that she does to recruit diverse staff. And obviously, she's gonna come with the lens of American Indian professionals and so forth, so she'll come and speak to that at our next, Sheila, at your next, at the next meeting? Teresa Severance is set to come. So I'll put a link to this document in here. So she has created the plan as one of the things that was requested. So the plan has been worked on, talking about efforts to diversify our school district. Obviously, I know as American Indian, the American Indian Advisory Committee, you're concerned about just specifically American Indian staff. But the plan is meant for all, trying to diversify our staff overall. But she would come with that lens of how do she really reach out to American Indian staff professionals. So she has the plan is here, and she advertisement. So here's where I'll just go to the advertisement because I know people say, well, where are you advertising? Yeah, where are we sending things? How are we making sure people are made aware? So she has the places where she's currently sending job postings when things are posted. So again, we're trying to make sure we are not just posting in the normal websites, that we are really strategic in our outreach.
Even for the Ojibwe American teacher we're looking for. Just kidding. We need another one.
So I will put this plan in here as a link, a draft copy, but she will be here to discuss it. So again, I'm going back to the recommendations. So that was one thing that was also, again, it's not a smart board, is it? Is it? Recommendation number 5, this is something we already doing, so we won't spend a lot of time. The call was for a cohort, so there is actual cohort that's operating, that's underway here. Yes, Amber.
I just wanna go back up, cause I was perusing the HR document.
Yep.
Didn't have that linked. I did not see any procedures for the involvement of the parent advisory committees in the recruitment, screening, and selection of applicants written there, and that is Minnesota statute section 124D.75.
This is a draft, correct?
Right, it's
Okay, I'm just wanna make sure
Right.
that I'll be looking for that.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good feedback. Yep. So we already know that we have the cohort going on here at Denfeld. One of the things that the cohort is also ready to come and share as well at a future meeting, where they are with things. I spoke with them, I don't know how how long ago was that time? I don't know. It's been a couple months now. Yeah, so, but they are ready to come and share their insights on how things are going. One of the things, I'm being honest with you, one of the things that they're gonna have to work on and do, like everything else, is how will they evaluate or assess the program, its impact? Is it meeting the desired goals? I mean, is it moving the needle for American Indian students in terms of attendance or grades or so forth? So there has to be a program evaluation of it. So they'll be here to share some of that and some of their experiences. So we have done that. Recommendation number 6 was manageable caseloads for American Indian liaisons. And obviously, these are the positions we said we added, but we pressed pause on them so far. So there was an attempt to add these positions, and that's where Sheila will now have to do that assessment. Does she move forward with those 2 new positions? Does she have a budget for it? Blah, 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 blah.
What is a manageable caseload?
Exactly.
Yeah, like, and I think we had talked at the school board about, you know, like, when we say adding 2 positions, one for the Denfeld cohort, we're like, oh, there's someone at Denfeld, but it's only for the students in the cohort. And we have JP, who has over 100 students that he works with. That is not a manageable caseload, right? Like, we have over 600 students in the district, and now we have less liaisons because Jamie has been moved to support the cohort students, which is great that we have support for them. So now we have Susan, we have 5 or 4 for 600 students, and like, that's just not manageable for anybody. And like, JP, there needs to be a second liaison, not the Denfeld cohort,
Well,
but a liaison.
Dustin said he's got over 100, he's got 120.
Yeah, and Lincoln and Denfeld are like over what
But
is reasonable. It's just
20 or
not.
30 of those kids don't really need the help,
Correct.
you know.
Yeah,
and
that's what I like to say, it's like the kids that are, yeah.
And those are the kids that
But then
ask
you
for
have
help
one like,
too.
I have a student like Cadell, 4.0 student. She doesn't never see the liaisons at the school.
I mean, I offer to come in,
You know?
I got snacks, come get something to eat or drink, you know. I mean, I do, but
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
how do I?
so you have those students on that end of the
Yeah.
spectrum, and then you have these kids, and then you have everyone in between.
Well, a liaison isn't just there for the people who are struggling, is it?
No,
But
No,
that's what,
no.
that's what happens.
That's what
though,
tends
is
to
that
happen,
we
Yeah.
have
are the students that need
triaging students who
more
are struggling.
support, yeah.
Well, I know when I met with JP last spring,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be like an hour, and it was almost, 2.5, 3 hours, but the students that he had coming in, and he was overwhelmed. There was no way he could get to each one of them.
This is a great example of, no, you finish your thought.
Have you identified the need for liaisons at each school? Like, have you looked at specific, the needs and how many kids really need it?
Yeah,
Like,
Jennifer,
You're saying there, a lot of them just come, but they're not even in the.
Jennifer had
That's
brought
right.
up to have, us, and I volunteered to do the west part, but it was hard to set up times because they weren't available. So I did do Lincoln, I did do Denfeld. And, Lincoln was set up nice. The needs that she needed, I did pass them along to Jennifer. JP, I couldn't even write a paper. I mean,
But the needs,
The-
could be positive and negative too.
they are,
We have to target all the
Yep,
students, not
and-
just the ones that are below,
And like,
right?
and the needs were, it was a good level. It
Yeah.
wasn't, JP's struggling here because not only is he helping the native students, he's helping every student that comes to him because they know who JP is.
Exactly,
Teachers were the same way,
yeah.
He wanted to bring me to the wood shop to meet somebody.
Yep.
And on the way there were 2 teachers that stopped him, and
I met with him on Thursday, I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
And it's really, it's awesome,
oh yeah, he's a good person. He's
Yeah.
got a big heart for the
Yeah.
kids, but
Sure does. And that's,
If we can get more of him.
we just need more JPs.
before I come to you, and that's when I'm gonna combine a lot of different things, so just track with me. That's where we have to have good conversations on what is a caseload. That was a great question, because just because let's say there's sake of conversation, there's 180 American Indian students in Denfeld, right? They're not all JP's caseload, but I know that's what is perceived of. Well, he's supposed to be there for all the kids. Well, yes, but he's there to help. Maybe it's to set up the powwow, to make sure there's culture experiences happening in the building. He's here to help the staff with this, that, or the other, maybe some lessons, right? So his caseload is, there might be 180 students here, but then there's just like Dustin is sharing, how many kids does he see in a significant way? Is it 30 kids that he really intentionally sees more frequently, and others he doesn't? But he's there for them. We just have to have good conversations on what do we mean when we say a caseload, so we can be realistic. I've even talked with them. I'll be talking with Sheila, and because of whether it's American Indian students or our achievement integration specialists, make sure that they have a manageable caseload. They're kids that they really support, they see often, but then they may do other things for other kids and again, provide those culture experiences and so forth. We have to be more realistic. And then I'm also sharing, this is where Sheila was going to have to make a decision. I pressed pause on the other two positions in the .cu grade. I pressed pause on those other two positions because I even questioned, like, hey, do we really need to have someone at ALCAO? And immediately like, yeah, they don't have anyone. And some people say yes. But then I'm also saying, well then, is it ALCAO or is it Denfeld? You get it? So, because we don't have funds to put everybody everywhere. So if ALCAO is determined to be the highest need, okay. But that could have been your opportunity to add that extra person here.
But there could
with
be
those
maybe
funds.
5 students at ALC, whatever.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
maybe
aren't
they're
there,
not
like,
seat-based. And
different,
maybe
uh,
they're, yeah.
Aren't there like different schools that have like smaller amounts of,
Yeah.
For a
Yeah.
while,
so
I
you could
don't
have
know
like
if
a floater?
I don't know if we still do, but at one point in time, wasn't what I was gonna say, but like at one point in time, we had a liaison. We have schools like Congdon, Homecroft, AJC, some of the other residential facilities, ALC, that there's like a handful of students. It doesn't make sense to have a liaison there all the time,
Yeah.
right? When there's just 1 or 2 students, and it can change from year to year. Like sometimes you've got 6 students at the school, and then the next year you have 0. Or we know Denfeld is always gonna have Indigenous students, and we used to have somebody who kind of like, on Mondays, we were at that school, on Tuesdays, so it was kind of like there was an opportunity for the students to have time with that liaison if there was a need. And I don't know if that position, I don't know what happened to that, but at one point in time, we did have somebody who just kind of touched on those smaller population schools as needed, or maybe like certain days a week, so those students could like meet with that person. Every Tuesday, we go and meet with Susie to do, what I was gonna say is, when we talk about historically, and I know Ms. Pohl can speak to this, is that schools historically, and I think it's getting better, you're having issues, you're having a problem, go see the Indian Ed staff. You're misbehaving in your classroom, or you're not listening, or you're having some sort of behavioral or emotional issue, go see the Indian Ed staff. Like, they default that when kids are having struggles, and we want our liaisons to be a place where students can go and feel safe and feel supported, but our liaison's job is not behavior management. Our liaison's job is not, that's not their main part of it, right? They can be a support to the student, but then when you have that happening over and over again, it takes away their ability to do other things with other students, and then they're triaging the students who are struggling, where there's other supports in the school that should be helping those students with like their check and connect and the guidance counselors and those things, where there are staff in the school that can fill those roles that maybe aren't necessarily the liaison's roles, because then you have students like Cadell, or we have other like high achieving Indigenous students who maybe don't have these triage needs, that aren't getting, it's kind of like, there's not an issue, there's not a problem that I need to help mediate for this student, so they just kind of don't get addressed because there's not like, the administration's not like, JP, we need your help with this student. So then we are getting students that are not on his quote caseload because he doesn't have the ability to even work with them, because he's triaging things that maybe aren't even really his job to do. Like somebody else should be managing that. So I think too is that, how many students are they realistically working with, but then also.
And that sounds like a professional boundary issue.
Some of it's a professional
I mean-
boundary issue, but
I mean,
like,
it's-
some of it too is like the district are the staff pushing our Indigenous students onto the liaisons when there's issues.
And
Instead
I'm
of-
honest, the
instead of
answer could be
handling
yes.
that.
The answer could be whether they're calling the American Indian Ed liaison to come help, or they may call the integration specialist to come help. They may call on the guidance again, they may be calling and reaching out to other staff to come and help with supporting students. So pulling us back up, I'm just sharing that as we think about recommendations for the concurrence, non-concurrence, let's make sure we get the right people in here so you can have the data. And let's have some of these other conversations, because what we think about a caseload may not be a good way of thinking about it, right? And at the end of the day, there's $500,000 to spend to expand programming opportunities or things for kids. So we can't do everything, so you just have to be more strategic. Again, you have to make some decisions like, nah, the AOCAO might be a good idea, but maybe we might want to do this, or maybe we want to do something else. Gray, then Amber. Gray, then Amber.
My point doesn't really matter at this point.
Amber.
I was just reading the attached job description for American Indian Homeschool Liaison. And there is a significant amount of special ed engagement listed in here. I assume that's a trackable process. I would like to know those numbers. So like at Denfeld, JP has been involved in X amount of SPED meetings.
Oh, okay.
At
Which is-
Lincoln Park. So we'd like to see, where, what are their caseloads based on just like the job description, what they're required to do.
And JP is actually very, just like with my own child, and then through the nature of my job, I have a lot of kids on my professional caseload that utilize IEPs that are students at Denfeld, and JP is actively at those IEP meetings advocating for the needs of those students. And so that is something that we've kind of trained the Denfeld special education staff to automatically include JP when scheduling those meetings. And if he can make it, great. Sometimes, just when you have trying to get so many cooks at the table, sometimes it doesn't work out, but we've kind of conditioned like, yep, this is American Indian student, tag JP on that. JP will join virtual or in person or will pop in. And my experience, both personally and professionally, having that liaison in that meeting has been dramatically beneficial for the family and the student. The family feels supported and heard culturally, that he's aware of different supports and has different ideas for the students within the building. And he gets to know these kids, and like he can be like, oh yeah, that teacher is, I see what that kid's saying about that teacher, where it's like the parents don't know that, or the special ed case manager doesn't know that, but JP has those relationships with other staff. And so I think at other buildings, that is just kind of a built-in thing for the district to train the special education staff of when you're having IEP meetings, and you have American Indian student, whoever their liaison is, should be included in on that invite or that scheduling. Like that's something that I think the district should be doing with the special education case managers. Because our students do need to be supported and have that cultural component brought to the table when we're looking at how they can be supported and be successful in school.
And
I
when,
have something regarding that specifically.
go for it.
So issues with that. When a student has an IEP, they need specific people involved with that. The parent specifically has to ask for the representation. If there's someone else that can be brought in, like JP, the parents have to make that request. JP doesn't just get to go
the case manager be like, would you like, could a case manager offer that to the family?
Let me jump in. Here's why, because we are down, not a rabbit hole, because it's a really good conversation, but those are the conversations we should be having as we're moving forward, is going deeper into some of these things, because there's some truth to everything that Gray just shared. And if hear Amber saying, how do we get numbers? We have to be thoughtful on how do we collect numbers from your liaisons, to, in terms of things they're doing. Are they participating in an IEP meeting? Are they doing this, that, and the other? So we have to get better at tracking some of those things. And we have to also be mindful that if they're doing a lot of tracking and then maybe spend a lot of time on bureaucratic stuff, right? Which is not saying it's not important, but that does take them away from working with kids if they're doing a lot of paperwork filling out. And if they're pulled for every IEP, that's all they can be doing, especially in a building that has a lot of IEP students, right? So they could be spending their whole day in IEPs doing those things. So we have to be real careful on some of the expectations we put out there for them. Amber?
Just pointing out that there is an obligation for the district to provide information to families about special education, including due process rights for decision making. So as soon as an American Indian student is referred for an IEP or whatever,
Like the evaluation.
an evaluation, they should immediately, it should be flagged. American Indian student, this parent needs to know you can have an American Indian liaison present for this, because like you're saying, if people don't know what they don't know, but there's an obligation as far as due process goes that this district has to do when they initiate that process to let the parents know they get an American Indian liaison for that cultural component.
I think that's, you're
And
just,
that
If
takes
they
time,
desire
that
it.
takes time,
My-
because they
If
have
they desire it.
30 days, they have the
my experience was, if you didn't get a child, IEP
PDIs they have
implemented,
to
let alone
complete and-
acknowledged
Yeah.
if it was a Native American child.
I'm just pointing to due process.
And you're spot on, because to your point, that's where I am working with SPED department, and we're trying to figure out, even with I think we talked about this as one of the things for the recommendations on that plan, how do we provide parent education to our American Indian Ed families on their rights, right? I think that should come from hey, when we're meeting with American Indian Ed families, the district has an obligation, but the committee could also say, hey, coordinators, homeschool liaisons, let's have events just for our parents to let them know about their rights. So the district should be doing it.
but then there's PAXI too.
Yeah, there's all kind of
But if
areas.
they don't know, they don't know.
Right. So let me continue real fast, because we are way.
How much more you got?
8 is recommend. Yeah, we talked about disseminating information. Again, we talked about those things. So you can look at the document. Again, the goal is you have the information in summary, because there will be another meeting to talk about where are we with things, so that you can be ready, the committee can be ready to develop its vote of non-concurrence and new recommendations. So that you have some information hey, what'd you guys do last year with our stuff? Did you honor them or not? Back to Amber's original question is, how do we use this information to say whether the district was in concurrence or not concurrence? I would, again, last time I'm going to say it, because it's really, really defeating to staff to always be in non-concurrence, because they're man, are we ever going to be able to do, say that we're moving the needle? And don't get me wrong, you won't hear this from me, because I've said this to my own team. I fully understand if I'm American Indian or African American student or family in this district, I would be hard pressed to be give my full vote of confidence, because the data doesn't support you getting our kids across the stage, right? So that's true. And we also have to get our staff in the space where they can really continue to feel like they can do some good things, and they are, again, taking kids on more outings, they're taking care of kids and trying to meet their needs, and they're trying to make sure they bring in culture and learn about. We need to give staff the opportunity to continue to grow, right? And give the district opportunities to have slight little wins so that it can continue to try to meet the needs. Because I agree, the data is abysmal and it's not anywhere near where I want it or the district wants it to be for black and brown kids. Teague.
I didn't actually see anything about the graduation rates in the
So
plan.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yes, go.
So in previous years, that has been a huge part of our concurrence is like SMART goals being data driven and like, is it realistic to put, we should have 100% graduation rate next year? That's not realistic, right? Like we want 90% of our students to be at grade level for reading in a year. Not realistic, right? But like in the past, we've had it be concurrence where it's like for the school year, and this is a data thing, like reading and math, this is the percent our students were at the last MCA or the last Fast Bridge, like just random numbers. 10% of students were at read well by third grade, 10% of students last year were at that. We would like to see in the next year up to 12%, or like something that is a realistic goal.
Manageable.
Yeah, like a manageable SMART goal, right? Where it's like, it's data driven, it's easy to measure, it's fact. Like it's not up for interpretation, like it is what it is, it's demonstratable, and it's realistic, right? Because if we set goals that are not attainable, staff are gonna feel defeated. We're gonna be like, there's no progress being made because that's not realistic. And so I think having data, and I can bring in some of the old concurrence and non-concurrence where like we had some of that because we had very specific data-driven goals that are not on here. And I think that was really helpful for everybody to see growth and hold the district accountable. It's like, this was a very manageable growth for next year, and like we did or didn't do that. Why didn't we? Or there was growth, but not a lot. What, you know, like those kinds of things.
Perfect, and then I'm coming to you, Amber, because this is why we moved to this, trying to say, these are goals, saying, if we're saying that our American Indian students need to have college visits to see themselves on college campuses, they need to bring in recruiters here to see, you know, that they are specific for American Indian students, like we're making sure that by the end of the year, they should be doing these things, they should have opportunities. That's something that the district can say, okay, you know what, through the coordinator, through the counselors, through the schools, they can pull off. We can actually measure that and say how many kids